So we'll just wait here for some people to get in here. So for anybody that's joined on replay, the purpose here was I'm breaking down the board to do some work. And so everything's coming off the board. And I wanted to show the benefits of having everything removable. Obviously, one of the benefits is being able to work on everything, especially larger pieces on a workbench rather than on the board. And obviously, if you had to move it or remove it or go to a different location, it makes it easier to. And when you're dealing with a shelf layout, that's ultimately possible. I know a lot of people have to break down and remove or move or store. Dwight, what's up, man? So this is partially for you, Dwight, because I know you had asked about building stuff on a base. So this is partially why I stopped. I was going to rip the whole board down, but I stopped. And I know you had asked, but there's been plenty of people that have asked different questions about this. So I try to build every vertical structure removable. So all the trees, poles, buildings, anything that's higher than a few inches, and even most of the fences and stuff are removable. And that's why I do it. I want to be able to take things off the board. So I'm going to give it a couple more minutes, see if anybody else shows up before I actually start ripping more stuff down. So you can kind of see what's happening. So I had this forethought when I first started to build because I had watched a couple of videos and a lot of people were talking about having to reach over stuff and breaking stuff. So they didn't put things in the foreground. Yes, that's correct. And so that made me think, well, okay, if I have something in the foreground, I want to be able to take it out of the way. So if I have to get in there, and I take a lot of pictures of everything because obviously I can share it, but it also helps me see things through a different perspective, because most of the people that view my layout view it through a camera lens. Randall, welcome, man. Thanks for coming. So most of the people that view my layout view it through a camera lens. So I want to see what they're going to see. Plus, being able to enlarge stuff really helps focus in on detail and make sure I get everything right. So there are, just about every section of the board, I'll look at it and then I'll realize, okay, this is the wrong color. It should be smaller, bigger. I need more detail here, whatever it is. So taking photographs help me, but also it's good to share. So being able to remove things helps get a camera and move things out of the way. So, the first thing that I built, and I'll kind of start with this, was I wanted the end of the board to have a stand of pine trees because there's a lot of pine trees in Florida. And so I built this, it's on styrene. So I think this was 60 mil. And I think there's 11 pine trees. So these were the first trees that I really built when I first started doing that. And you can kind of see, raise this up a little bit. See the trees there. So again, if this is on the corner of the board, if I want to get in there and take pictures or whatever, I can just pull that right out of the way. And I did it in such a way, I cut the piece in there so it's not a perfect square. It's got a different shape to it. And the static grass and bushes actually hide the seam. But I can get that out of the way. I can pull it up. I can move it somewhere else. If you looked at my barn build I did last week, I needed a setting for it because it was just such a small piece and it really didn't fit in with anything with my board. I actually pulled this out, put it in a different place, stuck some other trees around it, and stuck the barn in between it so it looked like the barn was surrounded by pine trees. But that's the benefit. I mean, that was kind of why I did that. I wanted a little, so I'll turn it around here and kind of see what plants and stuff falling out of the way. All right, so. Right. So I was trying to mimic, there's one There's a dead one here in the middle. This one here has no. And if you notice, all of them angle out. And that's a trick from art and photography. They're not vertical because if you angle the camera straight, see how they start to straighten out? That's an old trick. Everything gets distorted when you view it. It's like the Parthenon in Greece. There's no right angles in that building, and it actually gets bigger as it gets taller because it distorts. When you view a building from the ground and you look up, it distorts. It starts to cave in on itself, and that's why they built it so the pillars actually swell out. So that was the trick here. You can see it here, but when you view it from the other end, it actually so that's a little trick. I'll spin it around. Again, right? So that's it. So that's that piece, right? So everything is like that. And again, everything is also, right? I've got a little pin there that holds the pole in. So if I have to get back there and work or something like that, I can pull it out. I was moving these around. There used to be trees here, but I like the trees, but I also like having this open. On the prototype, this building is about 800 foot long, and here it's about half that size. There's actually 1, 2, 3, and then this little port here, which I could only view by satellite. So I had to kind of create what it looked like, but it's something like this back there behind that building. But there's probably 8 or 9 bay doors on the real prototype. All right, so I've got enough people here. So when I built this track, the real prototype actually has this, and this building has a little parking lot here, and then the truck shop, the building for the truck shop is actually around the other side of the building, and I think it's 29th Street here. 29th Avenue, I think is what's here, and that's like where the Metro Rail actually goes and turns and comes behind a couple blocks up. So this actually sits on that street, and the truck shop actually runs this whole way. And this is much longer. There's a lot more trucks and stuff back there. So the reason I did this way was because this track, the hidden track back here, I wanted this effect. I wanted to be able to, let me see if I have a car handy. Right, so the car actually disappears behind that scene. Right, so I like the effect of it, but for practicality, that's not really practical. And if you have to go back there and clean this track, or if you have a problem back here or have to get in there, that's not ideal, especially if you've got stuff on there and this is going to get shadow boxed, so it'll have, it'll be tough to reach back here. So again, in the spirit of having everything be removable, I built this as one piece. So the entire parking lot comes up, and it's built on, I think this was 30 thou that I just kind of manipulated together, but it's all one piece, right? So this is all removable. So the parking lot comes up, and I could take that, I could put it somewhere else, and I could actually, at this point, if I changed my mind and didn't want a truck shop there anymore, I now have the ability to put whatever I want back here. So, right back down to bare wood. So I have this whole open space back here. Right? See that? So now if I have to do any work to the track, I have to clean the track. It's easy. I got nothing in the way. I can take all that stuff, and that takes me minutes to do, not even. Pull the board up. And then this whole building is just sitting here. I just have to disconnect the lights. That comes off. Everything is like that. Every single thing. Like I said, all the trees. I haven't finished the bases of these trees. So it'll stand. But eventually I'll mount these all to styrene with a screw or something on the bottom and just drill holes. I'm still moving the trees around. I don't know where half these trees are going to live. But again, show you another one. And I know I posted pictures on this community tab, so probably some of you have seen it, right? The generator actually comes off, right? So when I built the generator, it actually has its own little diorama that fits. So there's the electrical cabinet, there's a whatever those things are. I can't remember what those things are called. And then the water, the backflow. But it's got a little sidewalk, some detail on there. And again, if I have to get in, get it out of the way. If I change my mind, I don't want this there anymore. It's done. I take it right off. But so it's its own little diorama. But I've kind of trained myself to build everything that way. Again, so move you over here a little bit. This stuff is just kind of sitting there. But the building pops up, but this wasn't part of the building. And I know I had somebody ask me the other day, I don't remember who it was, what do I build my bases on? So it comes down to how big is the piece and how much does it weigh? But this is probably 20 thou. So the garbage can, when I made the garbage can, and I made the, I can't even remember what these things are called, some kind of electrical box. It's on its own little base, right? It's just styrene. So when I pull that up, this doesn't have to stay here. So if I had to move everything, I can take, the only thing that'll be there is the plants. That's the only thing that'll be left on the board. It's just plants and track and some scenery. And if I mess that up, that's easy to fix. I don't have to worry about smashing buildings or telephone poles or anything. So that's why I build stuff this way. And this is probably 30 thou. And I think this building was probably built out of 30 thou too, a little electrical box. This is all styrene. The muffler was styrene. Stairs were styrene. These are all, it's kind of neat. This vented window here, you can kind of see, was the batten board. I use that stuff for everything. This is just the L shape. So it's 7 strips of L glued to a piece of styrene and then set in there. And then you just paint it and it looks like louvers. Because when this thing fires up, all those louvers open up to let air and everything flow through there. And then it was just 10 thou for the roof. And again, all the little bits and bobs that go with it, it's all styrene. So I wanted to share that before I rip everything down, because I think that may help some people. And I know a lot of people had questions on it, and I wanted to be able to answer it. And I don't think a video would have made sense if I had actually done it. I guess it could have, but I thought this was a good way to go. Sometimes when I do videos like this, I actually get more replay watchers on my live streams than I do on some of my explanation videos like this. So I would encourage it. It takes a little bit of planning. So when you plan out what you're going to build, this parking lot didn't have anything on there, so I had no problem just putting All my parking lots and concrete, everything is made out of styrene. One, because I knew how to use it. So I saw a lot of people use plaster. I saw a lot of people use a lot of different, a grout or whatever. And I've used all that stuff. Yeah. But I've been working with styrene for so long that I understand how everything works. I know how to paint it. I know how to, glue it. I have so much experience with styrene that was a no-brainer. Was like, okay, I'm doing everything out of styrene. So all of my concrete pieces, all of that stuff, and if it's low enough and there's nothing attached to it, then I don't mind gluing it right to the board. But some things are just better removable. And I kind of like the idea of being able to do that whole thing because I wanted to be able to just remove. So I would have had to pull up each fence, and it's easier rather than trying to remove the fence and trying to line it up with the holes and everything, right? I can just take the whole thing. Comes with both fences come right off. The whole thing comes right off. I don't have to mess around with trying to realign all the little holes where the fence posts are. It's already glued and it just lifts right off. I mean, there's nothing holding it there other than, there's a lip all the way around it where it's raised. So it sits in there, it's cradled, so it doesn't rock back and forth. It's set in there. It's not going anywhere. I mean, I'm not shaking the crap out of the whole board, so it's fine. And let's just, all right, I just slide it in there, and it's locked into place. And it's the same thing with all those other little pieces. They just lock right in. They don't move. They're fine. But that's the benefit for me of doing it this way, because now if I have to get back there, like, let's say I have a short back there, or I have to clean the rail, done. I move the building, I lift that off, and it's done. And when I have, because I wanted some vertical obstruction here just for the visual, but I had all these trees here, and it blocked the building, which was a good effect. I mean, I like the trees, and if you look at this area, there are trees on the prototype here, so it's not out of the realm to have those. But it was just such a small space that I was losing the depth. I think I get a little bit more, right? I get a little bit more depth now. That box car back here looks further away, whereas if I had a tree there, so let's put a tree there. I kind of lost some of it. This is where this tree used to sit, right? So I opted for poles because now I still have a vertical obstruction. So when you view it with the trains going by, there's still something there to give it depth. Like a staggered effect. I always think of everything. You got your foreground, your subject, which is going to be your trains or whatever, is going to be here or something like that, and then your background. And that's how I view everything here. So I'm putting things in here to create interest. I want something in the foreground. I want something around the subject. And then you've got to have, the more realistic looking background that you have, the more your subject is gonna be pronounced. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, I got 4 people in the chat. If you guys have any questions, fire away. Dwight, it's not necessarily that I'm good. I think I'm a good student. I try to study things the best I can. I created a visual thing. Because that's what I'm into. I wanted something visual. I wanted to be able to sit here and look at it, and get something out of it. I've built models my entire life. No, and that's why I did it this way. And I know most people don't. Most people will, which is fine. And if you have a basement and you own your own house and you live there for forever, right? And you plan to live there for however longer, it's fine. You can make stuff like that, and be fine. You don't have to worry about it. But I do it for, like I said, both reasons. I want to be able to access it if something goes wrong, and if I ever have to move this, which is a definite possibility then, because I don't own my house, and at any time I could have to go somewhere else. So I want to be able to take things with me. Um, and going back to what we're just talking about, this is I my grandfather had a layout. I used to help him out on it. I learned how to do a lot of things from him, like work with he showed me how to solder and work with brass and stuff like that. I had always been into RC as a little kid and built plastic models. So I used to fix a lot of the things, and it wasn't just that. He always had a list of. I always had to fix like the same things, like his chair or some controller or something like that, because I was good with electronics. But he gave me all the trains that I'm sure nobody else wanted, because you constantly had to fix them. But I was the one that kept them running. So I have a few of his trains, and those were the ones that I ended up with. I really wish that I got more stuff, but he gave them to his railroad buddies that were always at his house and helped him. So, I mean, it went to a good place. I mean, I wish I had him now, but because he had some nice stuff. He had a lot of nice brass, Amtrak stuff, F40 PHs, and that were really done up well. But c'est la vie. But I've had practice at doing this, and this I looked at this as more of an art project. Like I said, it's a visual thing. I've spent years painting and drawing and doing photography, and so composition was a big thing for me. Making things look interesting. It's Yeah, and there's a key to composition and capturing the viewer's attention. You have to be able to frame a shot and then move the viewer's eye around long enough for them to remain interested. If you just take a picture of an apple on a table, it's cool. People, oh yeah, that's an apple. But if you set it up and you've got other things and you've got something interesting, apple, piece of peel, a knife, a piece of cheese or something, then you're kind of going through a kind of a story, and people are going to be interested in it, or more interested. But that's a key to this. I mean, we're all composing a scene in some way or another. I think a lot of us just look at it differently, and some of us may not know that's what we're doing. It's I think a lot of us follow the prototype. A lot of us follow our heart. We want to see certain things on our layout, and so that's what we focus on. It may be memories you had as a kid, things that you have around your house, or just things that you think is cool. And that's the beauty of this hobby, is that not everybody gets the same thing out of it. You really, the sky's the limit. You're bound to whatever makes you happy, and that's the path you're on. You're going to put your layout. You're going to build your layout to however, whatever your goal is to make you enjoy it. Yeah, Dwight, I always feel bad because I tune into a lot of channels, and it's like the first thing they do is they start apologizing for why they don't have this, or why don't have that, why don't, and it's not why be that way. I mean, I think some people get trapped, and that's why I stay away from a lot of clubs and online forums and things like that, because people want to tell you can't enjoy the hobby unless you do it their way. And it's not just trains, every hobby's like that. And I always use the same example. I mean, um, yeah, but Dwight, there's still a lot of stuff out there that you can buy. And like, you have a 3D printer, you can make stuff. I mean, it's really what you're into. And I'll go back to what I said the other night. There's three things that people are looking for realism. You've got the visual realism, right? Scenery. How involved do you want to be in that side? You've got the functional realism. So it could be a working drawbridge or working uh, uh, signal crossing or something like that. There's that functional realism side. You want things operating and like real world stuff. And then there's the operational side of the realism, where you want to function it like a real railroad. You want to take things from scheduled things from one business to another, and move those things. And so those levels of what you want to see in those three compartments is really going to dictate what you want. Now, I think a lot of people get stuck trying to please other people that want something that is in one of those compartments that they don't really necessarily find, but they think they need to have it to appease other people. And if your hobby is pleasing other people, you're going to get tired and not be happy, uh, and then probably find another hobby, or else they're going to just do it forever and be miserable because that's not what you're into, you know. But I think in those situations, there, if you don't want to spend time building stuff like I do, then you can buy a lot of this stuff, and you get quality stuff. It's still going to look good. You're still going to be happy, and some people just want to watch trains. And again, I'll say this a million times. I can't tell how many times I tune into a video and there is, they just slap down track on the living room floor and they're just running trains, and you get 50,000 views. So people want to see trains run. They don't necessarily care about all this, which is fine. This is just what I'm into. I didn't really know much about railroad operations when most of my experience in my life was with passenger trains. I mean, I spent more time on Amtrak and on passenger trains in Europe than I ever did on a freight train. I've never actually been on a freight train. I've seen freight trains run through wherever I lived my whole life, and I don't know necessarily what they're doing. I've spent, the past 2 years, I've learned more about, how a railroad operates as a business and what those trains are actually doing than I ever knew before, which has been good. It's been a good journey, and I'll definitely use that knowledge on my next project. Will it be a true to life operational layout the next thing I build? Probably not. It'll still be bound by some of this, but it'll be more prototypical. I can tell you that. I mean, it'll have that feeling, but that's not necessarily my game. I don't want to have. That's not the experience that I'm after. And it's not to say there's anything wrong. I always had fun, like when I'd go to my grandfather's house and his buddies would come over, and it'll have duties and stuff, and they'll have little sections of the track, the track where they worked, and they would start razzing each other like, "Oh, you're getting behind here," and it was fun. That's fun stuff. I don't know if I'll ever really get that far. I spend more time looking at my this railroad, just sitting here and just staring at it, than I do operating it. But that was the goal. I mean, it's there's certain things sorry, but when you look at just the texture, move some of this stuff out of the way, and I've got to come in and clean it up because I was knocking stuff all around. But just the texture, the colors, the ground, the grass, the scenery. I mean, to me, that's why I did it. I want to look at it and really get something out of it. So I'm more than happy to just sit here and stare away. Anyway, that pretty much does it. Dwight, if you have any more questions, fire away. Everybody that's joined, thank you. And the barn was built for a friend of mine. So he had just got into, he's always loved trains. He's been talking to me, and so I've been sending him updates since I started this. And he finally, right around Christmas time, he bought himself some stuff. They went back and forth, and he finally got to the point where he was comfortable with the modeling artistic side of this hobby rather than just having a train set and trains. And once he got to that point, he got like Lance Minhei's book and was watching a bunch of videos and stuff. So he got himself excited and he started to go down the scratch building road. So he started to buy kits and the kits were frustrating him. So I started to work with him on scratch building with styrene. So I wanted to give him something that he could hold. That's why I made the barn and the stuff removable. And I kept it as simple as I could. Um, so he could look at it, have the video, and I gave him all the scrap pieces that I had from the board plus a little bit of extra stuff. So he could kind of figure out, okay, this is how he did this. I see how he put the walls together. I see how he did the wood and something like that. It was just a little like an inspirational thing. So I gave that to him on Monday after I finished. I took the final pictures and then gave it to him. And so now he has something that he can look at and kind of see, you know, how did I do wood, how I painted it, all those things. Because if you watch the videos, I mean, I went through step by step how I did the base, how I did the sand, how I, you know, just about everything. I gave him a few pieces of static grass that I had made him, like the tufts that were painted. I've always been fortunate in, you know, my life because I've always had people that were willing to take the time to teach me stuff that I wanted to learn, you know, and I had some really good people um, in every endeavor that I've had, and hobbies was definitely one of them. So I mean, I've done RC cars. That's still really my first love. I've had RC planes, helicopters. I still have planes, but in almost every endeavor, I always had people around me that were willing to take the time to teach me, you know, how to do things, how to be better at them. Um, Scratch building was kind of was self-taught. I mean, I looked at a lot of different things, but a lot of it is studying it and just going, how can I build that? And really with styrene, you know, for most of my life, especially when I built RC crawlers, it was just look at things, look at and just figure out how can I make that, and then just go and make it. And you know, I always had good luck with that. But I always had plenty of people that were around me, you know, in groups or whatever that were really good, and that helped. I really learned a lot watching them and seeing what they made. Because once you see what's possible, that helps too. You know, it's just like when I was a kid, if you had told somebody that they could do a backflip on a bike or a motorcycle or a snowmobile, they would have thought you were insane, right? Just think about it. That's the world we lived in. Backflip on a snowmobile, right? They were going to send you right to the mental institute. But you see them now, it's a common thing. You watch X Games, these guys are just flying off ramps, flipping around on a snowmobile. That's crazy. I mean, that was unheard of. It was unheard of on a bike. So, I mean, Evel Knievel jumped a lot of stuff. He never did a backflip. You had told him to do a backflip, he probably would have fought you right there. So, knowing what's possible makes goals more attainable, I think. Because if you don't know it's possible, then you know you don't even know. You really have to be adventurous, and I try to be as adventurous as I possibly can. I will attempt and try new things, and you know, even when I have people you know who've been doing this forever, and they say, "Well, you can't do that or you can't do that," I do it anyway because I might surprise myself. You I know I have a lot of things that I do where I could ruin. That's why I don't show a lot of the things that I do because people would be horrified. Because honestly, I don't really care. If I screw it up, I just make it again. That's the beauty about making everything. You know, if I went and spent, you know, a couple $100 on something and you know I didn't want to, but I'll just strip it down and paint it or rebuild it. I mean, I'm not afraid to do that. Do I want to ruin stuff? No. Do I want, you know, it was, if, I know, Dwight, you watched the barn project. When I painted I was so tired at that. I had been going for so many hours trying to get that, just cramming that thing, trying to finish it, that I loaded up the brown paint and I shot it on the hinge, and the first thing that came out was blob. I didn't test it. I see how thin it was. It just was such a hurry, and I figured I'd been going so good for so long that it was fine. And I had that like moment of panic, but you know, I've been doing this for so long that I know I can recover. I'll figure out a way to fix it. Even if I have to walk away and come back, I've never ruined anything to the point where I couldn't fix it. It might take me a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, a couple months to figure out how, but eventually I come back to it and I work through it. And that's the key to everything. You know, education teaches you how to do something. Experience teaches you how to recover when you make a mistake. So you have to try. You have to push yourself. You have to make mistakes. Otherwise, you don't learn. You know, there's risks in everything. Be a risk taker. I mean, what are you going to hurt? What are you going to do? I mean, they're not going to come shut your railroad down because you screwed up your track. You know what I mean? You're not bound by any outside force other than yourself. So take the risk. That's what I do. Yeah, you do. I mean, that's what I've made more mistakes even in this project than I care to talk about. I mean, I've screwed up everything. The track sucks. I mean, I don't know how many times I've said that, and I'll keep saying it. My track work absolutely sucks. That's why I want to build something else. Because sometimes it's not even fun to run stuff. I mean, I've got to the point where I can run, but it's still crappy. But I used crappy stuff. I mean, I didn't have access when I started building this. You couldn't even buy turnouts. I went to the hobby store. The girl told me, "Oh yeah, I can order that for you." There's one at the warehouse, or like two, or something like that. I mean, it was crazy. Like Walters didn't have turnouts. That was a tough time for everybody. So I ended up using junk. I'm not going to build another. I'm not going to lay another piece of track until I learn how to build turnouts. That's my next gig, because I don't want to have to go through this. That way, if I build them, if something goes wrong, I can fix it. So I will build all my own turnouts from here on in, and that will keep me from starting something else. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I'm not afraid to, and I learned how to do all the things I did here from screwing up something. You know, none of this stuff was perfect. This little piece of garbage here, right? I was trying to make a light, like the lights on the building in the background. This was my first attempt. It was crap, but you know what? Sitting there in a junk pile just looks like some kind of scrap piece of metal. I mean, how many times do you go to a business and you have no idea what you're looking at? It's just some piece of junk, some piece of machinery or something like that. But it works great. All this crap back here is the same stuff. All that stuff intermixed with there was just stuff I screwed up. But I'm happy because I made everything on the board other than the tanks, the vehicles, and the trains. Everything else is scratch and bang. I made all of it. And the more you work your way through stuff, the more you learn. Like, I'm like, how am I going to make little boxes? But all that is square styrene tubing capped with 10 thou, right? Then they just glue them on a stack and paint them. The pallets, 10 thou and 20 thou. Right? I can knock out a pile of these in, an hour and a half, have them painted. So it's fun to work. Yeah, Daryl. It was the interviews, right? You learn from the interviews. Did they even still have, I remember they were like, Playboy wasn't even going to have like pictorials anymore. It was just going to be interviews. I wonder how that worked out for them. The 3D printer has its place, Dwight, and it's a magical tool. I mean, it really is. I mean, in this century, the 3D printer is a magical tool. I don't have one, A, for the cost, B, the time I would spend programming stuff and letting it run, I could have it built. C, I really, really enjoy the process of building stuff. That's why I don't buy models, unless it's something specific, like I was talking about the other night where I Trackside Mike, thanks for coming, buddy. Buying the LPG tanks because I didn't know the sizes of anything. I didn't know 187 scale. That was one of the first kits I bought for $20 for the 2 tanks. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Done deal, So, some things I end up buying, but if I can build it, I'm gonna do it. And I enjoy the challenge. Yeah, nothing but lies. So that's why I don't have a 3D printer. I'm not against them. I don't think that there's anything wrong with using one. It's a great tool to have. I'm I wished I had access to one. Butthole camper, howdy, buddy. So for those that have them and use them, and you can create stuff for your layout. That's fantastic. It really is. I mean, what a great time to be alive. What a great time to have tools like that to use on your layout. I would, I just prefer building it myself. That's where my enjoyment is. Obviously, I mean, so Daryl, Mike, Mr. Camper. So what I was doing here was I was kind of going through and showing why I build things in sections, and obviously you can go back. But so I have the car back here. Let's say I had to work on the track or clean the track or something like that. I built everything in a way where it was removable, right? So this parking lot just lifts right off, and it just sits basically in a cradle of other stuff. So rather than try to pull up the fences and then have to put them back in, James, how are you, buddy? And like all the little posts, rather than have to line all that stuff and pull up the fence, just pull the whole thing up. It takes me seconds. So I pull the building up, I pull that up, and there it is. Now I can access stuff. And if I wanted to change this, I wanted to make a different scene here, I can do that. Easy. Right? No problem. And the other piece that I had was the trees. This was the first piece that I made. And I made it on styrene, and it's cut at an angle. So this seam right here matches up. Yes, it is. This is on a curve, and it matches up. So the static grass actually hides the seam. When I put it there, you can't even tell it's removable. I'll show you the other side. So there's 11 trees in here. These were the first trees that I made. Actually, I made one tree, and then I made these trees. And they're glued in. They actually have a root system, and I have old pictures. I'll try to dig them up and post them at some point. But they all have roots, and there was a root system, and it's pretty neat. But I wanted this visual effect. So this is actually the side that faces out. I wanted to be able to look up. It's a vertical obstruction, right? So this sits at the end of the board, so you can't see past the board. But I wanted to be able to look through the angle and see through the trees. That was the whole goal here. Kind of take pictures where you can look through the trees. And I know I have some of those posted. But it's on, I think, 60 thou styrene. And they were glued down with matte medium. And then I took the modeling paste, and I just worked and made a root system. And I covered it all up. There's many things, but this whole layout for me was practice. This was a learning tool. I was just practicing everything. I wanted to learn how to do things, see if I enjoyed actually, building a model railroad, a shelf layout, those type of things. So, when I'm finished, this piece just slides right back in. The shape is it's smaller on this end and bigger on that end, so it's kind of like a wedge, and it just wedges in there, and it's locked in place. It's not going anywhere. But now I can access it if I have to move it. I tried to make all the vertical, so I can pull this fence up, and that would be what I would do if I was going to move the board somewhere. But all the vertical obstructions, telephone poles, right? They have a little pin to keep them from going all the way down. So they just slide right into the hole. If I can see it. Wherever it is. Right? And then that's it. Sits right there. But everything's removable. So if I have to access this stuff, I can pull it out of the way. Right? Everything's on a little base. So the generator has its own little diorama, and that slips into a spot. Yeah, that was the whole purpose. I wanted it to look like, and there's nothing wrong with building if you have a room that you're not going to ever have to move anything. it's fine. I wanted the access to work on it, but also if I have to move this thing, which is an imminent possibility, then I wanted to be able to remove all the vertical obstruction, because then all I'm worried about at that point is just scenery, and if I screw that up, how much does static grass cost, and the time it takes. It takes me a lot longer to do this than redo the entire board with static grass. What, green bushes on the trees? James asked, what was the question again? What did I use on the green bushes? This? Like on the fence? Is that what you were asking? Sorry, the question came up too quick and I didn't understand it. Try and ask it again. The module, right? What did I use? It's okay. So I'll go through the whole thing. It's mounted on 30 thou styrene. So I built a little frame. You can see there's a seam in the middle here. So there's two pieces right in the middle. There's a seam. And then the trees on the sheet. Oh, okay, so I'll go back. So anyway, then this is just wire. So it's wire that I soldered together, wired for the fence. This is the old trees, that netting, weird netting stuff that has. I'll pull the package out. This is just 20 thou styrene with 20 thou sheets for the wooden fence, right? See if I can show that there. It's just the board and batten styrene from Plastruct. And then everything is flocked with knock leaves. Painted and flocked with knock leaves. This, right, this was 30 thou on the base. The trees are all wire armature covered in modeling paste and then flocked with static grass, 2 and 4 mil and 12 mil for the little branches. Right. The other module I had first. Okay, what was the question about that module? All right, this stuff right here, this foliage stuff, it's pretty much garbage. Like this, I don't know what to use it for, right? So then I take that and I make, I think I have some right around here somewhere. It's not garbage, but it's just not what I use effectively. I thought I had a piece here. So anyway, I soaked that stuff in, yeah. So that would be like the vines and stuff, I think is what you're asking, right? Yeah, Daryl, I've wanted to do that for quite some time now. It's just going back to how I'm going to be able to pull that off, if I have to move. So it may get stuck on hold. So James, what I do is I take that foliage stuff, I rip it into fine little pieces, and I wish I had a piece sitting here somewhere. I can show you. Bear with me for 1 second. So I shred it in as fine as I can. So I'm pulling it apart like by the strand, but I don't want to pull it completely apart. I'm trying to make a fine netting out of it. Once I get to that part, then I soak it in matte medium, and then I let it dry. And that matte medium has a very rubbery texture, so it allows it to hold its shape. Plus, things will stick to it if you reactivate it with water or isopropyl alcohol. So once I have that, then I'll mat it on the thing. Sometimes I put static grass on it or whatever. I'll try to, I lose a little bit of focus, right? So then I paint it after I've got everything. So I paint it really dark. Right, and then I'll put some static grass on it for little branches, paint it, usually like a dark brown, dark green, and then I'll flock it with, in this case, what do you call it? Knock leaves. And I'll show you. So I'm actually ripping the vines off of the truck shop now. I'm going to redo it. So you can see what it looks like. So this is on the back, on the truck shop, on the front. I made these vines because a lot of spots in Florida have these vines. It's this stuff, James. This is what I use, right? It says foliage on it, but it's not really foliage. Hold on. Right? See, dark green, F53, foliage, made by Wilderness Scenics. It's this weird crap, right? This is what the old timers used to just wrap around some kind of tree thing and call it a day. So what I do is I just, let's do a piece so you see what I'm doing. Take this and see how fibrous it is, right? And I just keep working it and working it. And what I'm trying to do is create something that looks like a vine. So it's going to be such a fine and minute piece by that point, right? Just keep shredding and shredding and shredding. You don't want much. You want to barely have this stuff hanging together because it's going to go on a, so you end up with something like this. And I'll take this and I'll get like a little bottle cap or something and I'll put matte medium. Yeah. See where it is? So you just want this, put this in matte medium, then lay it on a piece of wax paper and let it dry. So then I'll flock it with, let's say 12 millimeter static grass to create some branches. And then I'll spray it all brown or dark green or some natural earth tone because I want the highlight. See how I want the knock leaves and the outer leaves to stand out, but I want to see branches through there that are dark because that's what you're going to look at. If you look at vines on a fence, that's what it looks like. So then I'll flock it. Usually I flock it on the fence. If like on this, it was easy to do because the whole panel is removable. So I could take this, sit it over a piece of paper or something like that and flock, dab it. So I'll take a brush and I'll have matte medium here, diluted in most cases, and then I'll dab it on little sections and I'll sprinkle some knock leaves on it. You could use any kind of leaf material that you wanted, depending on what look you wanted. I just like the knock leaves for this, and it was available. So then I'll just paint little sections at a time, do a little bit, keep going. Does that make sense? But this is the stuff. This is what's at the root of it. And it's really fine. Like that bag will last me. I could do, an entire layout probably with that stuff. I don't use much of it. But the matte medium is good because it has a very rubbery, Liquitex. Because of my art background, it was a product that I've used Liquitex and Golden products my whole life because I used to paint on canvas and wood and do other kind of artistic stuff where I use those mediums. So I was very familiar with it. I like matte medium because like I was saying earlier, it's not shiny when it dries. So like when I plant all the plants, right? You can see the bottom here is matte medium. It's not shiny. It has a matte finish. So you can't see the glue. So like now there would be light shining down. If I had used some sort of glue that dries with a shiny sheen, yeah, then it's going to look, you're just going to be able to see sheen all the way through this. So the matte medium actually dries and blends in. And you can add pigment to it. So if you wanted to mix some paint with it, you can do that too. So it's a latex product. You mix a water-based latex paint in there. Yeah, should poke. Then it'll really blend in. You can do whatever you want with it. That's the beauty of all those Liquitex and Golden products. They're all intermixable. You can mix that stuff, you know, so if you have Golden latex paint or something like that, you can mix it with the Golden products. So the other beauty of it, so let's say I have some here. So I'll just show you for the hell of it. Right, I'm going to take a pinch of static grass. Bear with me. Let's go right there. Right, so I already have a shrub here, right? So let's say I want to extend that and make it more pronounced. Right, I got static grass right there. So what I do is I roll it around in my fingers. Right, so I get a little clump where all the hairs, all the fibers are pretty much the same size. And this is, I don't have diluted in front of me, but I happen to have full strength matte medium. So I'm going to put a blob of that right on there, right? I could do this and I don't have it with me, but I have a spray bottle full of isopropyl. If I spray isopropyl on there, I would kill the color probably, but in some cases that's not a bad thing because you'll get a little bit different blend. But the isopropyl will actually reactivate the glue. It softens the glue and then it becomes like it is now. So I'm going to take a pinch and I'm just going to plop it right there in the center of that grass. This is how I build grass and make it taller, right? See that? And then the beauty about static grass is it's stiff. So you just tap it down a little bit and it'll stand. So I'll work it right in between the other pieces. Thanks, BK. I liked your comment, by the way. Good old Yonkers. All right, so there you go. Now, you'll lose a little bit of fibers. The kit actually comes with a little comb, so you could comb that out if you wanted. Or you can come in with your vacuum once it's dry and vacuum all that excess up, and it'll just look like a tuft that you made. But you can actually layer. So I can come back in and put another tuft in there, and I could create height, right? So just keep going and going and going, and I'll zoom back, and you can see that's what I've done here, right? This is all just clumps of grass layered on top of each other, and I've created height. I'll put something there so you can see how. So there's the edge of a Q-tip, right? Q-tip disappears. That's all static grass that I've just layered on top of it and over time. So this was one of the first pieces I did, this little strip, when I first started to lay static grass, was along this area. And it was just very flat. It was just tuft after tuft, right? Little scattered tufts. But I've come back in and layer it, because this is where I put my hands, right? So when I'm working on anything in the back, it always lays on here. So this stuff gets ruined. I just come back and put another layer over it. But you can see how deep that is, right? This is just tufts. Put more matte medium, boom. More static grass on top of it, and it looks new again. And if I wanted to remove this, I just spray it down with isopropyl. I could clean this whole thing off. And that was, one of the things with the track. So when I do track, we'll go back to the praise of matte medium again. So that straight track is really easy, right? So you want to keep it straight, you put a straight edge there, and I come in with CA and I'll tack it in sections just to keep it in place and keep it straight. Once that dries, I'll come back and I'll put all of the ballast in. Because once the ballast is in and it's glued down, it's not going anywhere, right? So then I'll soak the entire area with isopropyl. Then I'll come with diluted matte medium and I'll fill it all back in. Sometimes 2 coats because the ballast will still be a little flaky, which it is now, it dries out. And then I'll let it dry and I'll come back in and I'll put more matte medium over. Spray a little bit of alcohol, more matte medium because that'll reactivate. And then it's set. Once this stuff is set, it's perfect. But if I have to remove this, I spray it down with isopropyl, wait about 10 minutes. I can come back here with a knife. I can almost pluck the board, and just pop the parts, the little spots where I had the CA. That's the only parts that are locked in. And in the rest, I can clean all this. I could have this whole section cleaned up in a matter of minutes with just a little hobby knife or something like that. Because once the glue is reactivated, it just comes right off. That's the beauty of doing this with matte medium. And I had to replace all of my turnouts. There used to be a turnout right here that I had to run around right here. I had to take that whole thing, and pull that all up. But this stuff with matte medium comes right off, and you could reuse it. You just soak it in alcohol, and it just becomes little rocks again. You clean it right off, and then just reuse it. So you don't have to throw it. If I had used anything else, this is, you're writing off the track, you're writing off the ballast. It's done. It's over. You're never using that stuff again. So that is, a benefit of using matte medium. Sorry about that. I'm like banging into the thing. Does that answer your question, James? With the most long-winded answer ever? I hope that helps. I don't do much dry brushing at all. Yeah, no, trust me, James. It's not cheap. It's about that much here too. If I go to the hobby store that rhymes with Bikles, it's about that much for a bottle. But I just finished my first bottle, and I've made 50 something trees. Yeah, that's and every piece of scenery on this board, plus the track and ballast, have all been out of that one bottle. So if you dilute it, you'll get your mileage out of it. All the plants, everything was made out of it. Go back. I don't do a lot of dry brushing. Everything is airbrushed, but you can see. Yeah, no, dry brushing has its place, but I think that. Let me see if I can raise you up. For HO, it's a little too big, but like you can see, I painted all this. Some of it was with a wet brush, like a wash, and some of it was with an airbrush. So I'll darken spots. Like if you notice in the center of the section of the track, it's really dark, but I wanted it that way because that's where all the garbage and crap is. But I paint everything with an airbrush. So the track, I know a lot of people do a lot of chemical treatments to that. I have to breathe this stuff. This is not in a shed, or it's in my house, in my living room. So I have to sit here and breathe this stuff. So I don't want to use chemicals. So I paint this with isopropyl and Tamiya, which is fine. I mean, it looks great to me. Yeah, if you buy Liquitex matte medium, it reactivates with water and isopropyl. So yeah, you can get it out. Just got to soak it. I don't know what matte medium you're using. Yeah. So there's spots where I go heavy. I'll actually paint it black or really dark brown and black. But I wanted to paint individual ties. Some look older than the others, obviously. But this is all to me. The entire, and I think, I had never, I've been painting models my whole life. I had never known about Tamiya, isopropyl, and airbrush until I watched Boomer. But as soon as he said it, it made sense, and the results. And I can't tell you, like we all look at Boomer's layout, and it looks phenomenal. But I can guarantee if you were there in real life, it's got to be stunning because there's a warmth to it. There's a glow. These colors, like the blend of colors, when you use this stuff, yeah, that's all of the Tamiya colors with isopropyl. And if you go and watch the barn video where I'm talking about shooting air, so when it's wet, so let's say you apply it and it's wet and then you shoot air, you can change the tone. it actually will get lighter and darker depending on how much air and dry time you have. So if you shoot air on and dry it quick, it becomes brighter. If you let it go slower, like when I'm painting the roof especially, you can see when I'm getting to that orange layer as it sits there, because I sped up, it's twice as fast. You can actually see it oxidize and change in real time. It's kind of cool. Like if you watch that video, it's actually changing. And that was kind of why I wanted to do it that way, so people could see it. But it creates these effects. There's all sorts of little anomalies that painting that way, there's never been anything else that I've worked with that has that. And I will never paint anything another way. It just has such a great result. And I was talking about the other night, to be able to paint highlights and shadows and use those, there's really nothing else like it. It's such a good way to paint. And I know it's not for everybody, but for me, for the look that I'm going after, that's the only way. And I'll be right back. Hold on, I gotta go to another room. Bear with me. All right, I'm back. So I've been focused on so many other projects that I haven't gone back to finish things, for locomotives and stuff, because I started to build a whole bunch of FEC and paint them. Okay, so this was painted in that method, right? There's no way I could have got this effect any other way. And so let's just use traditional. So traditional paint, you're gonna put a layer of paint, and then you're gonna go and add more layers of weathering to it. You start to lose, because the detail on these things are so small, the detail is so tiny. You're spraying paint in such a thin layer with isopropyl and Tamiya that you're not losing the detail. All the detail is still there, right? You can kind of see it there. All the hinges, all the vents, all that stuff. I didn't lose any of that because there's barely any paint. So I started off, I painted this, really light coat of black, and then I went through with like a dark brownish black, and then I came in with different mixes of this FEC blue that I mixed up, right? But I'm letting the layers show, same principle as when I painted the barn, right? The layers are showing through. You can still see the brown. I didn't paint over the brown and black. So the rust is showing through, so I don't have to go back in and add another layer to it and obscure the detail. Again, if you look at how this looks oxidized, you can see the red and white striping on the sill. But it's so light. I would have had to go through with layer and layer of brown on top of that and obscure more details, right? Here's the other side. Doesn't have the railing. Like I said, I'd never finished. I love running this thing so much, I don't even care. It's such a cool model. But, and I went through and I put the photo etched grills in there with the vents. I cut those out. But you can see the effect that it has. I couldn't have got this with anything else, but see how there's light blue and dark blue? I did that with air. So in those spots there where I wanted a lighter shade, I just was a little bit more wet, and I just held the airbrush there with just pushing air through it. But to be able to get that texture and not lose any detail, that's the only way I think I could have done it. Right, front. The stripes are painted on. But these models, like the time period that I was trying to model this after, these things were hammered. I mean, by the 90s, they were still running, I think, into the 90s. So I remember these things running past my house. They still had some of them in their fleet. But this was a rock island. This was actually a GP18, and I cut up and put 4 fans in. I found it somewhere. I just got such a great deal on them. It was like $170 with DCC and sound. So I was like, oh yeah. So I have 3 of these And I only finished one so far, but they'll all, I think they'll all get the FCC treatment just because I like these so much. They run great, they sound great, and, you know, painting them this way, I gotta finish this thing. 669. And that doesn't say, again, I'll be right back. Again, I'll get another one. I painted the same way for a different effect. So I saw these guys online do these Proto 2000, but they had Walther's kit. I ended up buying a Lifelike kit. And I still haven't got this thing running. Some projects you love. The 669, I love the project. This one is terrible. It's been a struggle for a whole, it's a nightmare. But anyway, you can see, look at the detail. This is such a nicely detailed kit. And painting it this way, look at the hinges, right? I didn't lose anything. And there's a black layer and I think 2 blue layers. But I didn't want this one rusty. 226 was special because that's my birthday, but it's got the photo etch grill with the fan. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. And then the photo etch top with the radiator. But this is an example of one that's a more clean model with the same effect. So you don't have to paint, you know, that method works even if you're trying to do. So if I shoot this with clear, it'll look like a nice, pretty shiny model. So you don't have to use this method just for a ratty look, but it lends itself to that process if you decide to go there, if that's what you're modeling. But I think if you're going to shoot and not lose any detail, man, this is the way to go, right? Because I didn't obscure anything. So the thicker paint, if you shot this with a rattle can, you'd be done. You wouldn't see any of that stuff. You just see a hint of doors and hinges there. But here, I didn't lose anything. Yeah, this one is a disaster. I mean, I can't tell you how many things I've tried to make this work, but there's no room in here. It's just some projects are a nightmare, and this is one of them. And I thought I could buy this and save money by doing it this way, doing it myself. I probably spent more money than I would have if I just bought a Rapido and painted that to look like this. This is a nightmare. I don't know if that'll ever run. But that's part of Lifelike. I think is, you know, their gear drive system in that was terrible. So I've tried to figure out a replacement for that and still be able to fit DCC and sound in there. Man, it's a nightmare. I just gave up. I haven't worked on that thing in over a year. But that's an example of painting a clean model with the same approach. You can still get away with it. And if you want to make them look like they've gone through a lifetime of work, then you've got that too. Yeah, no, because there's a lot of different options. You know, it's really how you paint, what you're comfortable with, and the results that you're trying to get. I did it because I had experience with an airbrush. I bleed Tamiya. I build in Tamiya kits since I was 9. You know, probably even younger. Yeah, you can use, but yeah, no, I think because, well, Kato has the drives in the trucks, don't they? This one has a drive in the center. It's a nightmare. This whole thing was a nightmare. It's just, it's so frustrating. I mean, I went and bought more stuff. I spent so much money trying to make that thing run. I just gave up. I'll figure it out. If it's like I said, I always go back to projects and try to make them. The thing is the effect that Tamiya with isopropyl has. If you try it and it clicks and you figure out the results, there is a warmth, a glow, the way the colors blend. I've been painting models my whole life. I've never found anything that kind of works like that. Oh yeah, I believe it. You know, I'm sure somebody's gone through that and figured out a way. I just haven't figured it out yet, but I'm sure. Like I said, I put the project aside. I've had so many other things to focus on. That's why this locomotive here isn't finished. I mean, I love that thing. You see me run it. I mean, I've run it a million times, and it's not even finished. But I don't care. It's I love that thing. That's my favorite. Um, it's it's a matter of preference. It comes down to, like I said, what you feel comfortable with. I love the result um, that Tamiya and isopropyl has. I'll never go back to painting any other way. It's something that if you try it and it clicks, you may never go back. And it's not to say I won't paint other things. I still have. I mean, I use all kinds of different paints. I have other. I have oils. I have. Um, uh, what do you call it? Vallejo. I have testers paints. I have all kinds of stuff. I've been building and painting stuff forever. Yeah, Fontana Black. Yeah, no, and everything has its place. It really does. But the effect that I've had, like painting the buildings, the other thing you can do is go in and like you can see like there's a kick mark on this building, right? I wanted to kind of create some distortion, like stuff had like hit the building or sat up there and kind of worked its way through. And you can paint stuff and then go as you're doing it, just blast it with isopropyl and remove paint. And I even did that on the model. Um, so like a lot of these seams in the vents, in order to get that brown back under the blue, I just blasted it off with isopropyl. So you're actually removing layers to show layers back that were underneath. All the little rust stains, like here by the battery box and all that stuff, right? That's just, once you get it painted, just blast that crack with isopropyl, get the airbrush in there, jack your power way up, and that stuff comes right back. And then you end up with a rusty seam and a little bit of drip, right? So you can see like right here under the vents, that was all just layers that were underneath. I just removed the blue paint that I sprayed over it. So there's a lot of little tricks that you can do, but the effect, I mean, I don't think you can argue with the effect. And that was the first locomotive I painted that way. I'm sure I'll get better at it. Anywho, think I'm gonna call this one done. Thank you, Preston. But I paint everything. So the trees are painted with isopropyl and Tamiya, right? So the trunks of the trees, same thing. So I'll paint the tree like a dark brown, dark green, and then I'll come back in with a lighter gray for this tree and an even lighter gray. So that's how I avoid dry brushing. Because if you do light layers with the airbrush, you get the same effect as you do with a dry brush, but you don't get the big thick brush strokes, and you lose some of the shadows, right? Because everything on the top of the tree is painted lighter than the bottom, so it creates that shadow effect. Like the branches are darker underneath than they are on top. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that, man. Right? And trying to dry brush something like this isn't the easiest thing when you're finished with it. Yeah, I'm about to call it quits. This wasn't supposed to run as long anyway, but Dwight kept asking me questions. Damn Dwight. But I really wanted to show, that was the whole purpose of this. I wanted to show how removable things can actually make working with this a lot easier. Yeah, Preston, that's absolutely true. So y'all, thank you. Hope this helps. Happy modeling. Again, thanks. And, you know, for all the people that tune in after, not me. Um, yeah, no, this is fun. Like I said, you know, I always want to share what I've got, because, you know, I get so much out of other people sharing. I think it's important. We all get better together. So I have no problem, you know, when I have time or I have something to say, to do a little bit of stream or put out a video and share what I've got. Thanks, Daryl. Love you, buddy. James, thank you. Mike, y'all have a good night. Doing.